Good morning. It's Thursday, October 7th. Welcome to this edition of the Washington Journal. We begin with newspaper articles and your phone calls. Then we'll be joined by Representative Carolyn Maloney, a Democrat of New York, and Representative Mark Stephen Kirk, Republican of Illinois. They'll be here to talk to us about the intelligence reorganization bills being debated in the House later today. At 8:30, we're joined by April Ryan of the American Urban Radio Network. She's their White House correspondent, and she'll be here to talk about presidential politics and the 2004 vote. Karen Matusik joins us later in the morning. She's from Dow Jones Newswire. She's their energy reporter, and she's here to talk to us about the rise in crude oil prices and its potential impact on gasoline and natural gas supplies. And we round out the morning with David Hilsenrath of the Washington Post. He's here to talk to us about his reporting of the investigations of Fannie Mae. We want to use the first 45 minutes of the program to talk about to get your reaction, to the report in the Senate Armed Services Committee yesterday delivered by Charles Duelfer regarding the weapons of mass destruction search going on in Iraq. And we want to get your reaction to that report. 202-628-0205 if you support President Bush, 202-737-0002 if you support Senator Kerry, and 202-628-0184 if you support any other candidate running for office. This is how it looks in the Washington Post on the front page. Their lead story, U.S. almost all wrong on weapons, is how they lead the newspaper this morning. And then for a different perspective on the Washington Times, Saddam worked secretly on weapons of mass destructions, but no trace of weapons found, is how they report it. And then in the Baltimore Sun, top inspector says Iraq had no illicit arms, nuclear program, others essentially destroyed. And if you'll go over to the far left of the newspaper, you'll see the key points in the report that was delivered by Mr. Duelfer yesterday. Findings from the final report of the Iraq Survey Group, which was hunting for evidence of weapons of mass destruction in Iraq. 1 point, Saddam Hussein ended his nuclear program in 1991 after the Persian Gulf War, and there was no evidence he tried to restart it. Baghdad abandoned its biological weapons program in the mid-1990s out of fear it would be discovered. Iraq unilaterally destroyed its hidden chemical weapons stockpile in 1991, and there is no evidence Iraq ever resumed producing such weapons. There is no evidence Iraq had any Scud missiles when the United States invaded last year. And finally, Hussein's goal was evading and ultimately ending UN sanctions and eventually restarting his weapons programs. This is a list of key points brought to us by the Associated Press and on the front page of the Baltimore Sun. If you haven't had a chance to see Mr. Duelfer's testimony in front of the Senate Armed Services Committee yesterday, we've got a clip and we'd like to show that to you, and then we'll start taking your calls.
A variety of questions about Iraqi WMD capabilities and intentions remain unanswered, even after the extensive investigation by ISG. For example, we cannot yet definitively say whether or not WMD materials were transferred out of Iraq before the war. Neither can we definitively answer retained stocks, though, as I say, it is my judgment that retained stocks do not exist. Developments in the Iraqi intelligence services appear to have been limited in scope. And I'm referring here to some laboratories which were discovered in late 2003, where the Iraqi intelligence service was found conducting some work in chemical and biological areas. But certainly these activities were not declared to the United Nations. What did they really represent, and was there a more extensive clandestine activity with another set of technical experts? We cannot say yet for certain.
And our first call regarding the weapons of mass destruction, the report that was made in front of the Senate Armed Services Committee yesterday, comes from West Palm Beach, Florida. Good morning.
My name is Jared, and I'm calling to say that the report proves that, saying that the three axes of evil, the two axes of evil says that they have weapons right now, and Saddam says that he did. And for us to invade shows that we knew that he didn't have it because we didn't want to invade countries that had weapons of mass destruction, because we knew that our troops would lose a significant number of forces. So to invade Iraq, knowing that they didn't have weapons of mass destruction, was just Bush trying to say to get the attention off of bin Laden. And since we've been in Iraq, you barely hear President Bush say anything about Osama bin Laden, and that's strange.
Michigan, go ahead.
This. The fact that this guy claims that there were no weapons found means absolutely nothing. Look at the oil for food program that the Iraqis and the United Nations dealt with. All of it is corrupt, every bit of it. And the only thing that I can say about this report is that there are weapons somewhere. We know that Saddam Hussein killed hundreds of thousands of people, Iranians, Kurds, and his own people. We know that for a fact, and he used chemical weapons. So I don't know what is going on right now. This is a whitewash of some kind, because I think everybody's got a finger in somebody's pie. Thanks.
In the New York Times this morning, their lead story, U.S. report finds Iraqis eliminated illicit arms in 1990s. Douglas Jail writes the findings uphold Iraq's pre-war insistence that it did not possess chemical or biological weapons. They also show the enormous distance between the Bush administration's own pre-war assertions based on reports by American intelligence agencies and what a 15-month inquiry by American investigators found since the war. Mr. Duelfer said he had concluded that between 1991 and 2003, Mr. Hussein had in fact sacrificed Iraq's illicit weapons to the larger goal of winning an end to the United Nations sanctions. But he also argued that Mr. Hussein had used the period to try to exploit avenues opened by the sanctions, especially the Oil for Food program, to lay the groundwork for a plan to resume weapons productions if sanctions were lifted. Next up is Evening Shade, Arkansas. Good morning.
Good morning, Rob. Thank you for C-SPAN. You have a wonderful show. I'm so excited. This is the first time I've ever gotten through on a phone call, and I just want to say that the report yesterday solidifies my conviction and my vote for John Kerry for president. This, Mr. Bush rushed to war. If everybody would remember back when the inspectors were in Iraq, they were in the palaces, they were talking to the scientists, they couldn't find anything. And instead of Mr. Bush letting that play out, let's see what's there, let's find what he has, he rushed into this war for nothing. And the whole world was trying to tell him, slow down, let's see what the inspectors find, and he wouldn't wait. And I think for that decision alone, he deserves to be voted out of office.
Now, let me ask you this. If they had found weapons of mass destruction there, would that have changed your opinion on President Bush, and would you be voting for him?
I don't know that I would be voting for him, but it would have changed my opinion, because I'm going to tell you, Rob, I believed it. I was scared to death for our soldiers when they went into Iraq, because I had watched the reports on how they didn't have the proper protection gear to wear, that it was only a 24-hour outfit, how easily it could rip, and they could be exposed to the chemicals that they thought Saddam had. So, I bought into it. I am one of those that bought into it. But, this final scene now, that he should have let the inspections go. I didn't understand why he didn't let the inspectors go on. There was no good reason for it. And I think his rush into this war and the loss of all these good soldiers, men and women, and innocents over in Iraq, that he does not deserve to lead our country another 4 years.